relationship building. So making sure that you have the connections with the right people and understanding who their drivers are. And the third is when you look at data that you have, how you evaluate that, analyze it to ensure you have the right kind of insights, and how to then go to the people you built the relationships with and deliver insights that will help them with their decision making and planning for that international expansion.
We really care about people, and we care about going and supporting organizations to get value from their people. And a lot of that is wrapped around payroll, technology, HCM technology, workforce management. And so we really specialize in that space around how to help organizations to really leverage the suppliers or the technology partners that they're working with and be able to help them grow their people and have better people experience.
Managing a global team is complex, but Deel makes it simpler with payroll, HR, IT, and compliance all in one place. That's why over 35,000 businesses trust Deel to hire, pay, and manage their teams worldwide. See how Deel works at deel.com/nickday. That's DEEL.com/NICKDAY. Deel, your forever people platform. Hello, and welcome back to the Payroll Podcast. My name is Nick Day. I'm CEO at JGA Recruitment Group. We are specialist payroll recruiters, and I'm the host of this fantastic show, which is all about raising the profile of payroll. You can help me do that as well. If you're a fan of the show, please remember to subscribe to the show. Please remember to review the show if you can. But most importantly, please share this show, share this episode or your favorite episode with all of your payroll colleagues and friends. And we can really raise the profile of this wonderful profession together as a community. And actually, that's exactly what this episode is all about today. It's about community. It's about one of the most fantastic, certainly the biggest payroll get-togethers that exist anywhere in the world. That is, of course, Payroll Org's Payroll Congress. This year it was held in Orlando, where I got the opportunity to meet with some absolutely fantastic industry luminaries who are really shaping the future of the payroll landscape. And I felt very fortunate to be just part of this wonderful event. I was able to meet so many friends, so many colleagues, but also meet so many new people in this profession that are really as passionate about this industry as I know you are too if you're a listener of this show. I was fortunate enough to also embrace the stage at Congress with two talks, one on talent and attraction and one on leadership transformation. So I felt very privileged to be able to do that. But I wanted to feature some of the guests and some of the people that I've met along the way at Congress this year. 4 or 5 short interviews. Some of these people are winning awards, some are running businesses, and some are just absolutely in the detail of payroll. They all share one thing though, and that is a passion for this profession and a real excitement around Congress. I hope that comes through in bucket loads, and I hope you really enjoy the episode. Here we go. Patricia, so lovely to have you with me. You're my first interview at Congress this year.
I'm honoured.
I'm super excited. I think you're a bit of a celebrity at Payroll Congress, and you have inspired me this year because I'm doing 2 talks on the stage, and I've watched all of your speaking videos. I'm very excited. But I think this is did you say you've done 26 events or 26 congresses?
This is my 27th or 28th consecutive.
Wow.
And then I was booked once before, a few years before that.
So very rare I get the opportunity to speak to somebody who's been to quite so many congresses. So tell us a little bit about the event. Maybe for someone who's never been, what can they experience at Congress?
Well, as my life for the last few decades has been at conferences and conventions, all speakers, because a lot of my friends have spoken here, would all agree, one, the organization and the general sessions and the quality of the breakouts are superb. Plus, some of the clients that hire us, it's almost as if they're trying to sabotage us doing a good job. That is not true with Payroll Org. They really look after their speakers. They make it easy to do well. And what I have always encouraged my speaker friends to do is, it's always been my philosophy, do more than you get paid for. So for example, for years I've done keynotes and breakout sessions. And then I know 1 year with 2 of my friends, this was 1996 in Opryland. And I wrote an article how it was then the American Payroll Association took 1 + 1 + 1, 3 speakers, and ended up with, I believe it was 16 different events or ways we served them.
Wow.
We all did programs for the vendors. You know, it's fine, a big vendor.
It must have been exhausting.
But however, you know, a lot of the smaller vendors and new vendors, they're not as comfortable because you have to, people don't necessarily walk into your booth if they don't know you.
No.
You have to invite them in. So we did those sort of programs. One of the friends, Diane Parenti, was an image consultant. And so Dan invested in her giving personal consultation to all the board, for example. So that was it. So Dan knows, and his very great production team know how to maximize the speakers. So it's a very well run convention, and one magical part of it, the first timers have a red dot on their name tag. And I know I make a beeline for red dotters, because anytime you go into an organization you might belong to for years, however, this is your first time, it can be very overwhelming. So it's very important in any association, any organization, any company, that you go out of your way to make people feel welcome and appreciated and part of the family before they do.
Couldn't agree more. I love the red dot thing. Yesterday I was speaking to people that had their red dots. I remember when I had my first red dot. This is now my third congress. And I think when you first come, the scale of this congress is like nothing I've ever been to before. And I've been in the payroll industry now for 22 years. I've been to lots of conferences all over the world, but this is something that's just at a whole different scale. And that can be intimidating. And we know that payroll can be sometimes a little bit introverted. So I loved your example about inviting people into the booth. I think hopefully this might resonate with the talk I've got later, which is on attraction and retention of staff. I'm saying that when you put your job adverts out there, don't just put a list of duties like a job spec. You've got to invite them into your story.
Yes.
What's the story of your department, your organisation? Where's the feeling? People don't buy into duties, they buy into the story. So that was really nice to hear you say that. Now, of course, what I haven't done, for those not familiar with Patricia, is you, of course, are a public speaking expert. So tell us a little bit about your background and your expertise, that you really do help speakers like myself to really make sure that we're on the top of our game and we feel confident and we feel assured to be able to deliver the talks that we do.
Well, again, you have to give credit to Dan Maddox, because he realized he has his leadership speak on large venues with celebrity speakers or Hall of Fame speakers. So he wanted to invest in them feeling comfortable in their skills, so that it wasn't, here's the professional speaker or the celebrity, here's our people, that they were all comfortable to have equal billing, as it were. And then, of course, as you say, many brilliant experts in a payroll subject or area are not necessarily comfortable the first few times they get up to speak. So that's why we prepared information for them to watch ahead of time, and also have a speaker school before Congress where people can practice their openings and the transitions to their presenters and build their confidence. In fact, one technique I love to do when I do a breakout session on speaking for the members, I will, who is honest enough to say they can't imagine anything worse than getting on stage and speaking?
Let's go up.
Yeah, if you're honest, and I take one and I'll say, trust me, you don't have to speak. And I bring them on stage. And I say, you don't have to say anything. What you're going to do is model, how do you stand and look confident? And I help them do that. And then I'll say, wasn't that great? Now give them a standing ovation. I say, what I want you to do in the next break, call your boss and say, my first event at Congress, and I was on stage with one of the guest speakers and got a standing ovation.
Lovely.
And usually by then they want to say something, so I'll coach them on what to say. And this is the secret, and it would be beyond speaking. It would be, everybody needs a successful experience of what they're scared of.
I agree.
And everything else is a piece.
I'm a big believer myself, and I write a lot about this. You need to lean into your fear to find your
yes.
potential.
Yeah.
You need to find that level of courage, because on the other side of it is where your potential lives. So we need to overcome those things. And I've certainly taken away some things from your speaker school. And one of those was a lot of people, I think, procrastinate or they get concerned they need to have all the answers. And then I think you said in one of the videos, people aren't there to get the answers. They're there to hear your perspective.
Yeah.
It's never going to agree with everybody in the room, and that's okay. But my experience, my perspective is always going to be very different. Everyone else is in the room, and we're here to share how we've learned, how we've come on our journey, and to invite them into our story. Of course, it all circles around story, of which you're an expert storyteller. Are there any stories you'd like to share with the listeners on the podcast, maybe, where they can just get a bit of a feel for some of the talks that have gone through? It could be any kind of story.
All right. Well, stories about people, and we like to hear them speak.
Yeah.
And very often we'll tell a story and we will report on the dialogue. So you say, I walked into my boss's office and told him I needed a raise. That is reporting on the dialogue.
Yeah.
If you tell a story, you say, I walked in the boss's office and said, boss, I deserve a raise. I work harder than everyone else, because you put the emotion in. And one of the best examples, I was coaching an executive and he was talking about corporate citizenship. And I realized he was passionate about the subject, and I had to find a way to make it really great. So I said, Bernard, how do you explain corporate citizenship to your children? And he said it was the day after Christmas, and I sat there with my children and said, you are very lucky children because you have generous parents and even more generous grandparents. And perhaps you would like to give us one of your gift certificates and one of your presents, and we'll cash it in and get the money and give to children who are lucky enough to have homes. And he said, I was so proud of my 14-year-old son. He said, Papa, how much do I give? Because I could give you all of my savings and all of my pocket money and all of my presents, and it wouldn't be enough to make a difference. Bernard said, I told him you never give it all. You just give enough that it hurts a little. Now that is a simple story that takes 1 minute to tell. If you transcribed it, there's quotation marks through most of it.
Sure.
And every time I write a check or I fill in an online donation, I think of that story and did another 50 or 100 bucks, because it just has to hurt a little.
I love that. That's a beautiful story.
Yes, so that is an example of a simple story. Stories don't have to be complicated about curing cancer. It could be, for example, if you are talking to new associates, I've helped a lot of people with these sort of speeches. I might say, welcome to what could be the best job of your career. And I'll never forget my first day working at this company. And so you welcome them in and give the expectation, not that you're going to stay here forever, but it's going to be the best job. You tell them your experience and say, it's been the best job for me, and it can be for you if you take advantage of everything this company offers. And then you list what it is.
What I love, and you do it so naturally, is also the power of the pause. I know sometimes we're on stage, you must see this all the time with the people you work with. We rabbit it on, we want to get to the end, we don't need that moment for dramatic pause.
And this is why you do it. One, we are speaking to our audiences. We want them to remember what we've said and be able to repeat it to our colleagues. And when you use shorter sentences or phrases and you pause, it gives the audience time to think. Whereas in a conversation, you can go back and forth. Yeah. When you're listening to a speaker, you have to give them time to think, I didn't know that. That sounds good. Yeah, maybe I could use this. You give them time to internalize, and if they want to take a personal note, they can do that. And it also gives you time to think and breathe and think what comes next.
Sure.
So it's good for both of you. And then I would also recommend, as you're doing the review of your key ideas, before you close, you can say, remember to, when it comes to payroll in Ohio, remember to tell your colleagues, as you review the key ideas. And then I also recommend when you want to challenge them to do or take some action, or if it's a matter of go get a demo in booth 32
Yeah.
if you're a vendor, and then your last words linger. And your last words linger is like the PS of a sales letter, which most good copywriters will tell you they write first. It's not a new idea, it's why we sent you the sales letter. And so you might take one step forward and say, remember. And what is the one pithy idea? For me, it might be remember. All education needs repetition and reinforcement. One pithy idea. And what we were talking about, when you have a duo, you can have two last words linger.
Sure.
For example, one of the speakers last week, Ryan, he is a vendor talking with the customer. So you've got different points of view.
Sure.
And so you might have a last words linger as far as the vendor and the customer.
Yeah, I love that. I guess I've approached it, rightly or wrongly, I'd love to get your view. I'm a big fan of Pareto's, the 80-20 principle. And I know when I do a talk for an hour, as I've got one coming up today, there's no way the audience can remember everything I say in that hour.
Yeah.
But if they can remember the 20% of those moments where we pause, those moments of poignancy, those moments that I really want to take away with, if they can walk away with that feeling, because they're not going to remember all the stats, they're not going to remember all the bits in between. And hopefully I've done my job.
What you want them to do is be interested enough in the subject to really study the handout and the resource you give. And I would encourage everyone that if you really want to internalize this, teach it to someone else, teach it to your team, teach it to your chapter.
I feel very privileged to have a chance to speak to you before my talk. I'll take these tips in now and hopefully try and relive them in my own talk in a couple of hours.
Well, when you have me, when we turn this off, I can give you some advice, as if you were at speaker school yesterday.
There we are. That sounds fun. Patricia, thank you ever so much for joining me as the first guest on the podcast for this year's Congress.
My pleasure.
My pleasure. It's all mine for sure. Thank you so much.
Hey, so I'm here today with Deel, CEO at Boundless. I haven't met you at Congress before. I believe you've got a red sticker. First time. How are you finding it?
I do have a red sticker. So I've heard a lot about Congress from people over many years. We've had team members come last year to Nashville, the year before to Colorado. But this is my first time making it across the pond from Ireland to come over for this event. And it is fantastic. Really, really brilliant to meet people that I've had connections with for many years, but haven't met in person before. And just great to feel the energy and spend so much time so close to so many payroll practitioners.
Fantastic. You'll be going to some of the talks. Anyone stand out?
Well, Nick, I saw your talk.
You did, of course, in my room.
Which was fantastic.
Nice.
You had a very busy room.
I did. It was a busy room.
So I'm just about to host my first workshop here at PayCon. And I walked into your room and I was a little bit intimidated because it was such a huge room and you gathered a great crowd.
So let's talk about your talk. What are you talking about at 5:15?
So 5:15 today, I am talking about how payroll can get a seat at the table for global expansion. So how payroll practitioners can spot signs that expansion may be coming down the track, how they can make sure that they have influence, that they have connections with the right people and that their voice will be heard, because so many of the people here have such amazing insights that their organizations should be listening to, hearing, and taking into account earlier in their process of planning for global expansion. So really, it's about these people have all of the right knowledge. It's helping them to understand how to make sure their voice is heard.
So I'm going to ask you, if I can, see if we can condense it. So those that are watching this or listening to this, they can't get to the talk. They're going to hit your final outputs. What's the summary? What are the key takeaways?
So there are really three components to this. The first is looking for signals. So where are you seeing signs that global expansion might be coming down the track?
Okay.
So this could be things like looking at when you've company all hands, quarterly business reviews, any kinds of all company updates where there may be these signs that people are looking to international. So launches in new markets, starting to hire in territories where maybe there hasn't been hiring before, anything that signals interest in new locations. It could be setting up alerts for specific words being mentioned in Slack channels.
Yep.
For example, anything to do with international, global, new market launches, along those lines. So that's the first component. Second component is then relationship building. So making sure that you have the connections with the right people and understanding who their drivers are. And the third is when you look at data that you have, how you evaluate that, analyze it to ensure you have the right kind of insights, and how to then go to the people you built the relationships with and deliver insights that will help them with their decision making and planning for that international expansion.
Nice. I imagine you've got a pretty busy room. This is something that payroll people want to get to. How do they get a seat at the table? Obviously, you've got one. You're a CEO yourself at Boundless. Tell me a little bit about your role. Tell me a little bit about Boundless.
Sure. So my background was as a COO.
Okay.
I always oversaw finance, legal, and HR at the three companies where I was COO. Always led payroll. I am by no means a payroll expert. When I say led payroll, it was always external vendors that were managing our payroll. But I started Boundless back in 2019 when I had this challenge of trying to find an employer of record that was high quality, very focused on compliance. And that's really our need. That is where we are focused. It's around, we're a very, very high integrity player that is really focused on full robust compliance. We do not cut corners. So we love working with customers that care about quality and compliance the way that we do. We're across 30 countries, our own owned infrastructure. So we're the direct EOR.
Yeah.
So we don't get that degradation of quality as it goes through partners. So when you talk with Boundless, it's Boundless that's going to be your EOR, and you know that you'll get access to the right experts directly.
So you're expanding as well? You're a company that helps others expand. Does that mean you're also expanding?
Yes, we are indeed. So we have been launching countries fairly consistently since 2019. We added South Africa last year. We're very close to launching Greece. We launched Belgium not so long ago. We'll have an Italy launch coming up in the not too distant future. So yeah, we're adding new countries.
I've heard Italy's quite complicated.
It is extremely complex. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and not just as an employer or a payroll provider operating there, as an EOR, it's one of the more challenging countries to launch in.
And where's home for you? I'm sensing the accent, but for people that haven't quite got familiar, where's home?
So yeah, my home is Dublin in Ireland, but I am spending a couple of months in New York City right now.
Nice.
Nice. So I had a very short trip to get down here to Florida. Nice to come to a US conference without any jet lag.
I'm suffering with the jet lag, I'll be honest. I'm suffering a little bit. So for those that are watching this, listening to this for the first time, maybe they're not based in the US, but this is your first trip, you have that red sticker. What advice would you give them? What should they expect on their first trip to Congress?
I think you should expect a really open, welcoming, I was going to say a room full of people, but there are many rooms.
There are many rooms, yeah, for sure.
It's such a friendly crowd. You could come here solo with no colleagues with you, and you will make friends, for sure. Also, payroll people know how to party.
They do know how to party.
They know how to party. The DJ last night knew his audience. He was playing the right tracks and everyone was up doing their dance moves. I was like, I obviously don't look at enough TikTok. All of these people had these dance routines out of
I actually know which one you're referring to as well. I wasn't partaking, but I was watching for sure.
There's some great dancers here. So bring your dancing shoes.
What's the thing that surprised you? What was the bit that maybe you underestimated and you were like, okay.
So something I didn't quite understand about here. I knew that people were coming to get credits. I didn't realize what an important resource this event is for the payroll community in terms of their education and ongoing professional development. So it's pretty much at the heart of the event. And people are here to learn. They are really active participants in their learning. That's great to see.
That's amazing. Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining me on today's show. If anyone wanted to find out more about Boundless or a little bit more about what you guys do, where can I direct them?
Yeah, sure. So boundlesshq.com is our domain. We have amazing, if you go to the resources page on our website, we have some really fantastic ebooks, blog posts for anyone that's in global payroll, in HR compliance, anyone with global teams. You'll find that helpful. And you'll find me on LinkedIn. There are not too many D Coakleys. I'm DEE Coakley. I think I'm usually the first D Coakley that comes up when people search, so you'll find me there.
Well, I'll try and tag you into the show notes if you're on LinkedIn. Thank you for joining me. Enjoy the rest of Congress and enjoy, I hope, your 5:15 talk goes really, really well.
Amazing. Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, Dee. So I'm here with Wendy Muirhead. I was in your talk yesterday. You were fantastic. I don't want to give all the secrets away. So what were you talking about at Congress?
I was talking about how to keep payroll relevant at the board agenda.
Go on.
Well-
I was there. I can't give all the secrets away. It was really good.
Thank you. Well, do you know, I was really surprised that the time that I had such a full room, because I was competing against Max and Graham from Active Payroll. So I thought, oh, their sessions will be brilliant. I'll probably just have you in the room. And I thought, how am I going to educate people and have CEO conversations when you're the CEO?
No, you did a good
right?
job.
But it was a packed room.
It was about
And I really wanted to bring it to life and have some energy and get to meet the folks in the room. So you know me, I like to get the
It was
mic
very
out.
personal. You remembered everyone's name. You greeted everyone on entry. You went back. You remembered what they'd said.
I did. Well, the more you put into an audience, the more you get out of it. So
And work with the CEOs about listening, right, and asking questions.
Exactly.
You demonstrated that in your presentation.
Exactly. So yeah, no, it was great. It was great. It was all around actually how to understand what's important to your CEO, what your CEO psychological profile looks like, how to start planning and preparing and getting yourself organized for those types of conversations. There's a lot more thought that needs to go into actually how does it matter to the CEO when, especially if you go in and you're asking for money, you're asking for capital allocation. You need to know where their messages lie, what's important to them, what's important to the business growth, and then actually start to build a business plan. So we did cover off a little bit high level, but how to build a business plan and sort of tips and tricks and strategies
So we're
that work.
bottling up the whole talk into 3 takeaways on this little short conversation now. So people go, I've got a CEO meeting this week.
Yeah.
Just heard this show with Wendy. These are my 3 big takeaways of your whole hour-long presentation. What can we say?
I would say really understand truthfully what your CEO's makeup's like.
Okay.
What matters to them? Because if you can shape what you need into what relevant, what resonates for them, number one,
Right.
that's the first top tip. Number 2, when you're asking for allocation, be really clear about your numbers and don't overbake it. Because if you say you're going to save $1 million, they're going to come looking for that $1 million. And the third thing, if you are going to get the allocation and you're going to make change happen in your business, have really clear governance so that you know that you can actually get that change on time and under budget, because you continue to retain that trust with your CEO.
Amazing. This is gold dust.
There you go.
And it's your first Congress. You've got your red sticker, bless you. So tell me, how does it feel to be a Congress newbie?
It has been electric. I've got to say, the atmosphere, the people, I couldn't believe actually when I went into that general session and there was over 3,000 people in the room. I believe this is the biggest Congress they've ever
Maybe
had.
it is, yeah.
And I've just been blown away. For anyone who hasn't been to Congress, this is definitely an investment worth making for sure. The amount of people that I've met, the new friends I've made, the things I've learned. Your session was brilliant as well. I actually put on LinkedIn, the thing I took away from yours is when I say yes, what am I saying no to? And I had that
Powerful, isn't it?
conversation with my husband straight after.
Did
My
you?
husband said, you say no to me all the time.
Well, then what are you saying yes to?
Everything at work.
Fair enough. Wrong way round, Wendy. Wrong way round.
I know.
So let's talk about work, because you're from WH People, or you're the founder of WH People. I know all about you again, but tell the audience.
Okay, WH People is a global payroll and workforce management consultancy business. We really care about people, and we care about going in and supporting organizations to get value from their people. And a lot of that is wrapped around payroll, technology, HCM technology, workforce management. And so we really specialize in that space around how to help organizations to really leverage their suppliers or the technology partners that they're working with and be able to help them grow their people and have better people experience.
And you consult on all aspects. If someone's listening to this and goes, actually, I do have a conversation with my CEO coming up and I want some consultative guidance on how I approach that conversation, they can reach out to you. You can help on that front as well.
100%, yeah. And we could just have a virtual coffee around, tips and tricks. If they're looking for help with strategy, if they're looking for help with work design, if they're looking with help, even, something isn't working in my business, we've actually got resources that we can help to come in and spend time with the organization and put a plan together. So yes, we do all aspects from org design and SOP creations right through to helping with evaluation of the market.
Amazing. Now, I should add as well, I saw Wendy, there was a fancy dress competition at the party. You were dressed as a Princess Payroll or Princess Peachy Payroll, probably. It was a video game theme, so for Mario Kart, you look fantastic. You came third?
I did.
Yay! First
know.
Congress, third in fancy dress competition.
I'll tell you the truth. I had nothing prepared, and then I went on the what to know before you go webinar, and then thought, oh gosh, everyone's got a costume on this webinar. I must get something. And so it was a very, very late emergency buy from Amazon.
If you're going to come first time, right, fully embrace it.
100%.
You've done that.
I bought the outfit. I wasn't not going to wear it. So, but there's a guy called Matt who was also dressed up as Princess Peaches.
I did see him actually, to be fair, yeah, with the beard.
I know. I was joking with him saying I had more facial hair than he did. But yeah, no, it was really good fun. I think you've genuinely got to just put yourself into everything you can. And the amount that you can take away is just incredible.
Amazing. So if you can sum up Congress in 3 words.
Electric, amazing friends.
2 words. You don't even need 3. That's
there
enough.
you go, amazing friends.
Oh, okay.
You can put them together or you can keep it separate.
And if you've never been before, and you're on the fence for next year, you think it's quite a lot of money, it's a long trip, I'm really busy at work, why should they still make that commitment?
And do you know, I thought the same thing. I've came myself. It's a big expense, you're right. I'm a brand new baby business. We're only 14 months old and the business paid for this expense. So it was something I had to really consider and weigh up. Is it worth the investment? It's been 1,000,000% worth the investment. Again, having the conversations with industry leaders like yourself, meeting up with other fellow passionate payroll people, just having the opportunity to learn and to network and to grow genuinely has been worthwhile. And the amount of business
Friends for life,
conversations,
not just for Christmas, or was that dogs?
it's true though. The amount of business conversations has been huge. So it was a massive return for us. So we've loved it.
Well, Wendy, I always love seeing you. It's great to have you here. Enjoy the rest of Congress, and we'll see you next year in Nashville.
Yeah, can't wait. High five.
So I'm really excited. I'm with one of my favourite payroll people in the world, which you know, Mary Holland, who this year is a Global Vision Award winner for 2025. Mary, how are you feeling? How are you doing?
Nice to talk to you again, Pete. Yes, I'm feeling great. It was such an honor to be recognized and win the Global Vision Award. Kind of full circle. As a lot of people know, I worked for GPMI, and when I worked there, that was one of the things that I created. And Max, the founder of Buznik, was the first winner. So I was very honored to, as I left and worked out in the industry, to be recognized. So very honored. It's kind of my vision and what I love and what I've kind of got hooked on since 2010. And so my first visit internationally with a VP kind of changed my life and kind of changed my whole direction when he asked me to look at the global footprint. And I remember my first trip with him was the fact that he said to me that when you go on this trip, it's gonna change your life. And I'm thinking, how could a trip, my first trip to India and then over to Taiwan and then the next trip into different places in China and then going over to Moscow and Hong Kong would change my life, right? And so my first thoughts were, as I left San Francisco, was I'll be back in a few weeks and my life will be normal. But it wasn't. He was correct, and it has changed my life. And I've got to meet such great people around the world. I think that's the piece that I truly like. And then understanding the different cultures and the pieces and that everybody is out to work and achieve goals for themselves and for their families. And kind of the logistics of how hard it is in some countries to do that is different than in other countries. And then just meeting people. And then you kind of have friends for life, and just that understanding the holidays, the culture, kind of the things that's important to them, really kind of is that a little bit of the employee experience. It's so important today in the HR and payroll space, but it also makes you aware of being respectful of cultures and the thought process of that, and then going back and to educate your teams and thinking about that as you build out teams. So that to me it's been great. I really am so honored to receive the award. It's I've received other awards, but this means a lot to me because I'm in that. I love global payroll, and it's something that I never would have thought I would be.
It was amazing.
It's not a career path that was on part of my journey, right?
No.
As a finance person, or I'll say a bean counter in my lifetime, I never would have thought that I would be spending time, working and wanting to be in a global space. And then kind of in the last 5 years ago, or the last 5 years, I was working for a company that was based out of Dublin, Ireland,
Payslip, yeah.
Right. And so that was kind of like a goal to always work for an organization outside the US. And that kind of also gave you the insight of the dynamics of working with international, how everything's put together.
Sure.
And really a lot of it is so different than the US even. It's how the people work, how they come to work, what the holiday period is, when the busy periods are. I got appreciation of the summertime when people take longer vacations.
They do.
And what that looks like, what the holidays around the Christmas period are is important in some countries and those pieces. But it's all kind of building it together to know that we're a small world. So I'm extremely honored and
Well, I think
appreciate it.
it got a very loud cheer when your name was announced, right? You've got a lot of support. You've always been a fantastic facilitator, a fantastic communicator, fantastic person at bringing people together. I mean, you've certainly helped bring me to different people, different clients, and I think there was a lot of support and love for you in the room when that award was announced. And I know what it feels like because I won it last year, and now you won it this year, which is amazing as well. Gave me imposter syndrome to feel like I didn't feel as deserving. I think this is something that absolutely you deserve to win. And I think the whole global payroll community is thankful for the effort and the work you do. And you've never been afraid to put yourself under pressure or to take risks. And I think it's great because you're a shining light example of why other people shouldn't be fearful either. Right? It's this is where you've got to. And you've done so well.
As you know, it's the world's changing every minute, right? So you need to kind of change and look what's out there and what do you want to try, right?
Yeah.
And it may work or it may not work. And it's funny because I remember, Nick, the first time I met you was at the CIP conference, right?
Yeah.
And you were doing presentations there, and that kind of built the relationship that we had over. It's probably been almost 7 years
It
or
has.
so. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's
Absolutely.
and your contribution, is amazing to me. Your contribution to the HR and payroll space, and now you're even focusing on the mental health piece of the workers and the talent that's out there. I think it's absolutely amazing.
Very kind.
Because it has insight that people need to think about as leaders. And I do often just recommend people to go out to your website and look at the information, because I would encourage everybody to do that, because we as leaders have to think about it, and especially you're global. And what does that look like? And some of the recordings and podcasts that you actually have, you're bringing in the international theme. So it really helps you kind of build your skill set and background. So
Well, it was yourself that inspired me to come to my first Congress 4 years ago. You said, Nick, you've got to be here. I've been coming every year since. People listening to this that are still on the fence about coming to Congress, why should they come?
I think they need to come for a couple of reasons. First, to build your skill set, right, and continue to have continuous education and training, and support build a business case to support that to your management, and start today, right, really to build that for next year. The other thing is you get such a different group of people that you meet, people that can help you in your particular career, people that might be in the same industry where you can benchmark and get some information, and really what's happening in the industry. As at this particular conference, there's AI, and what does that mean for us as leaders, and helping our teams understand not to be afraid of it, right? So there's those type of sessions, but there's also sessions, on educational sessions depending on countries that you're in. There's information.
Kind of something
on
for
that.
everyone, isn't there?
There is something for everyone. As you know, you were doing some leadership classes, right?
Yeah.
You did a great class on talent and how recruiting talent has changed. So I think that's one thing, and that network of people helps you in your career, but it also helps you if you have something personally happening in your life. You have some support people where you can talk to them, and they're happy to provide you support.
You can be vulnerable here, can't you?
Yeah, you can be vulnerable, but life is that way, and so you need your pool of people there. And I think if you don't kind of continue in that piece, then something like being introduced like AI and you don't have the training or know anything about it, it's scary. And so if it's scary for you, it's scary for your team. And you can talk to people, they can be honest. And the one thing with payroll people, they're open. They want to help people.
And they say
so
it's
I
never
think
about the
that-
how, it's always about the who.
the
do you
who.
know?
Who do you know? And then really kind of lastly, to stay current, you have to really talk to the vendors and providers that are here. And the market has drastically changed. I mean, if I've been going Congress probably since 2007, right? And so at that one point, if we just kind of look at it, we really only had one or two global vendors, and we have a lot here today. But then the services that are provided, even if you're just focusing on the US, are completely different.
Sure.
And it really gives you an opportunity to kind of benchmark, if you have a provider, what are some of the other providers providing? And then you have the ability to ask, is that on your vendor's roadmap, or what does that look like? And that's really keeping you current so that you can provide that information to your leaders is, here's some services that we might need. And as we look at it, it's a whole stakeholder team. Like there's HR pieces that come in, there's pieces that come in on different pensions and those benefits that are out there. And then of course, the payroll calculation, then going out to payments, right? The actual payment piece.
Yeah.
So I think if you don't have an opportunity to come and talk and network, you're not going to have all the knowledge.
I agree. I think in payroll, there's something here for everyone, right? And,
Right.
Well, look, 2025 Global Vision Award winner Mary Holland.
Thank
I
you.
could talk to you every day of the week. And it's great to have you here again. I've
Thank
back
you.
today, but thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you, Nick.
I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I hope you really got a sense of the enthusiasm, the positivity that exists at Payroll Congress. Next year, it's actually going to be in Nashville, one of my favorite places in the whole of America. I'm a huge fan of country music, and if you are too, I highly recommend you get out there. If it's not for the Congress, then get out there for the music. But more importantly, there's an opportunity for you, if you're listening to this show, to take part in a wonderful, wonderful Congress next year. So I do very much hope that you're able to come along. And please, if you do and you see me there, come and say hello. I love meeting all of the listeners of the show. I've met so many this year. I'd love to meet so many more next year. So please do come along. And if you get one more opportunity as well, please do remember to subscribe, to like to the show, share this with your friends. And I hope to see you at Congress in Nashville in 2026. Thank you very much. Global teams are more connected today than ever, but managing payroll, HR, and IT can still feel fragmented. But Deel simplifies global work with one platform that keeps everything running smoothly. No compliance guesswork, no third-party payroll, just seamless operations backed by 24/7 expert support. That's why over 35,000 companies trust Deel to handle their global workforce. Visit deel.com/nickday to see how Deel can help. That's DEEL.com/NICKDAY. Deel, your forever people platform.